Om Sat Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaskaram to one and all. I extend a warm welcome to everyone. I am Aishwarya Harish, the Cultural Coordinator for Nrityodaya, the Academy of Performing Arts, Mumbai. Today we meet here for the 12th session of the Young Researchers Forum, a collaborative initiative of Nrityodaya, the Academy of Performing Arts, Mumbai, and the Center for Excellence, Art and Culture, Shasun Jain College for Women, Chennai. We have had a variety of topics being covered in the last 11 sessions, and we hope to continue to bring to you innovative, interesting, and increasingly inquisitive areas of research. We begin today's session with the prayer song being rendered by Ms. Hiranmayi Anantanarayanan.
Shri Kamalambike Shive Pahi Mayam Lalite Shri Kamalambike Shive Pahi Mayam Lalite Shripati Vinute Sita Site Shiva Sahite Shri Kamala Bike Rakachandramukhi Rakshita Kolamukhi Ramavani Sakhi Rajayoga Sukhi Shakambari Shatodari Chandakaladari Shankari Shankara Guru Guha Bhakava Shankari Ekakshari Bhuvaneshwari Isha Priyakari Shikari Sukhakari Shri Maha Tripura Sundari Shri Kamala Bike Shive Pahi Mam Lalite Shripati Vinute Sita Site Shiva Sahite Shri Kamala Bike
Thank you, Hiranmayi, for that very apt and melodious rendering. I now invite Dr. Jayashree Rajagopalan to welcome the audience.
Om Sat Gurubhyo Namaha. A very warm welcome to all those who have joined us today on our 12th session of the Young Researchers Forum, initiated by our institution, Nrityodaya, the Academy of Performing Arts, Mumbai, and the Center of Art and Culture, Shasun Jain College, Chennai. We are very happy and feel very blessed that we had started our session very auspiciously with our Guru Padma Bhushan, Dr. Padma Subramaniam's lecture, where she laid out a path for young scholars for the need of research in Indology and also the methodology that can be used and the importance of field work. Today's young researcher is Shivapriya Vishwanathan, also another student who did her MFA under my guru. She would be speaking on the significance of Paurnami in Vedic and Agamic practices. I welcome you, Shivapriya, for this forum. And Dr. Gauri Maulikar, a name to reckon with in the field of Sanskrit and Indic studies, a very dear friend of mine, and I'm so happy to have you here, madam. We are all looking forward to this session where another new aspect of Indology is going to be handled. This forum was started as a platform for all young researchers to present all their findings, which they've done so passionately. This is going to be an online series so that people globally can join us. Now I'll hand it over to Dr. Rajshri. Om Shri Sai Ram.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. It is said that the voice of the intellect is a soft one, but it does not rest till it has gained a hearing. It gives me great pleasure to introduce someone who is extremely soft-spoken, who is modesty personified, but is the epitome of Sanskrit knowledge for scholars and researchers alike. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Gauri Maulikar, Professor and Dean of Faculty, Chinmaya Vishwa Vidyapeeth. She is the former officiative Vice Chancellor of CVV, the former head, Sanskrit Department, Mumbai University, former head of Gurudev Tagore Chair of Comparative Literature in Mumbai, Kulapati of Samskriti Samvardhan Pratishthan, an NGO working for the education among school children in Mumbai. She is the Vice President of Itihas Sankalan Samiti, Konkan Prant, instrumental in the construction of Ramakrishna Bajaj Sanskrit Bhavan in the Kalina campus of Mumbai University. Her academic qualifications include a PhD on Vedic elements in Puranic mantras and rituals from Mumbai University in 1992, and an MA and PG diploma in comparative mythology. Her awards are numerous, just to name a few. The International Ramakrishna Award, the Canadian Education Foundation, Ontario, 2003. Guru Gaurav Puraskar from Kalasadan, Mumbai, 2011. Kavi Kulaguru Kalidas Samskrita Sadhana Puraskar from Maharashtra Government, 2013. Samskrita Pandit Puraskar, Brahmana Seva Sangha, Mumbai, 2013-14. Adi Shankaracharya Puraskar, Shankara Matam Matunga, 2014. Savitribai Phule Puraskar given by Mumbai University in September 2015. Indira Behere Puraskar, Tilak Maharashtra Vidyapeeth, Pune, 2015. And Manikji Limji Gold Medal for a dissertation on ancient Greek dramas and Bharata's Natyashastra, Mumbai University. Her books and publications similarly are numerous, to name a few. Vedic Elements in Puranic Mantras and Rituals, 2000. Governance in Ancient India as Joint Editor, Proceedings of the National Seminar, 2013. Animals and Birds in Sanskrit Literature, Editor in Press, 2015. New Frontiers in Sanskrit and Indic Knowledge, co-edited with Professor Srinivas Varakhedi, 2019. She has participated in various state, national, and international seminars and conferences, presented papers, and chaired sessions. More than 90 research articles in English, Marathi, Sanskrit, and Hindi, and published in various journals. 16 students of hers have been awarded the PhD. She has initiated courses in manuscriptology, Bhakti literature, and mysticism in the Sanskrit department. She has coordinated a UGC-funded project on digital preservation of palm leaf manuscripts 2010 to 2015. It really is our good fortune, ma'am, that we could have you as our expert today. And I'm sure the inputs that you give will be of great value to all those who are listening in. Namaskar. Our young researcher today is Srimati Shivapriya Vishwanathan. She is a senior dance teacher at the Temple of Fine Arts International Shivanjali, Coimbatore, founded by Swami Shantananda Saraswati. She is a disciple of Srimati Kamakshi Jayaraman, who is a direct disciple of Padma Shri Varuvur Ramaya Pillai. Her academic qualifications include an MFA Bharatanatyam from Shastra University, Tanjavur, 2015, English Literature B.Lit, Bharatiyar University, 2015, Advanced Diploma in Fine Arts, Carnatic Music, 2013, Diploma in Nattwangam, Annamalai University, 2011, GCE A-Level 12, Singapore, 1995, GCE O-Level 10, Singapore, 1992, and she's currently pursuing a certificate course in the practical learning of Karanas at Nrityodaya, Chennai. Her achievements include teaching Nattwangam and Carnatic music, has choreographed and conducted many Arangetrams. She gave lectures for Bharatanatyam and Carnatic music as ancillary subjects for the Advanced Diploma in Bharatanatyam in Bharatiyar University. Her experience includes worked as a dance teacher in Kikani Matriculation School, Coimbatore, 2017-18, Project RTAM, that is reaching out through arts, music and movement at Spastic Society of Karnataka, 3-day movement in 2014, Amrit School for the Differently Abled, Special Needs Children, GD Matriculation School, and numerous dance productions at the Temple of Fine Arts International. Her technical qualifications include certificate courses in scripting and makeup. Welcome you, Mrs. Shivapriya Vishwanathan, and I'm sure you will be able to give us a good insight into the topic that you have chosen today, that is significance of Paurnami in Vedic and Agamic practices. Thank you. I request you now to make your presentation.
Greetings to one and all. The title of my paper is The Significance of Paurnami in Vedic and Agamic Practices. In Hinduism, the combined scientific study of astrology and astronomy hold a prominent position as one of the 64 This art form facilitates the amiable completion of tasks by identifying the most comprehensive scientific depending on his or her mindset. Here, the mind is known to be influenced by the waxing and waning of the moon. It is possible to predict conducive time for the execution of all deeds to benefit an individual. In the Indian tradition, the different phases of the moon are taken into account when observing auspicious events or festivals. Among them, the monthly Paurnami or the full moon is considered holy and marks many prominent Hindu festivals. This day is also very auspicious for materialistic and religious purposes. Often, purchases of gold, appliances, vehicles, land and other luxuries are made on this very day. There are several full moons in a year that hold specific significance. For example, the Paurnami in the first month of the Hindu calendar Chaitra is known as Chitra Purnima. It is believed to be the day when Chitragupta, the celestial accountant, balances our ledger of karma. It is believed that new accounts are opened and karmic balances are settled on this very day. The full moon also symbolizes total mental illumination. Given that the word Guru means dispeller of darkness and that a Guru heralds in light and leads one to enlightenment, Guru Purnima that falls in July is dedicated to this act of illumination that every philosopher or guide performs for one. Vedavyasa, or Krishna Dvaipayana, the compiler of the Veda that form the basis of Hinduism, is said to have been born on this very day. Thus, as a celebration of his greatness, this day is known for knowledge and the showing of reverence to those who impart that knowledge. The Buddha Purnima, also known as Vesak Day, is the day when Lord Buddha attained illumination under the Bodhi tree. In Hinduism, the lunar deity is referred to as Chandra Bhagavan. He is said to have married the 27 daughters of Daksha Prajapati. His favorite, though, was Rohini. He visits them sequentially, and the presiding nakshatra of the day is decided by the name associated with the wife he visits. This folklore has been passed on to validate the Vedic astronomical and astrological knowledge. Rohini, as I said earlier, is referred to as Aldebaran, a reddish giant star in the constellation of Taurus, where the moon is exalted. It is the 14th brightest star in the night sky, and its occultations by the moon, or in layman terms, the star's temporary disappearance, as it moves out of sight behind the moon, is visible to the naked eye. One of the Trimurtis of Carnatic music, Sri Muthuswami Dikshidhar, describes the moon in one of his famed Navagraha Kritis, Chandram Bhaje Manasa, as one who waters the earth, has 16 phases, is rich in nectar, He is the brother of goddess Lakshmi in the eyes of Lord Venkatesha. He adorns the head of Lord Shiva and has cool rays. He who was born out of the mind of God has a body that produces the brilliance of the autumn full moon. He is also the beloved of Rohini. The 16 colors or lunar phases mentioned above are Amavasya or the no moon day, Pratama, Dvitiya, Tritiya, Chaturthi, Panchami, Sashti, Shaptami, Ashtami, Navami, Dasami, Ekadasi, Dwadasi, Trayodasi, Chaturtasi and Paurnami for the full moon day. Each of these days is ruled by a Nityakala Devi who is embodied with attributes, a mantra and a yantra. The 15 Nityas are addressed in the Devi Katkamala as the very first Devi, the supreme goddess Kameshwari, is also referred to as Tripura Sundari in the Sri Vidya practice. It is only she among the 15 Devis who is not visible except with the eyes of a realized soul. This is akin to the germinating of a seed which cannot be seen by a person but is believed to be there because of the proof given by a scientist. Kameshwari is also in union with Kameshwara, her male counterpart, and it is this union that creates the world. This is perhaps why Amavasya is considered auspicious to begin anything new, wherein we are in line with the creative force. In Vedic astrology, the moon is considered the significant factor of the mind and is the focal point of instinct, emotional nature and other mental experiences. On the other hand, the sun is said to represent our soul, which is our spiritual or inner world. This is why in an astrological chart, the moon and the sun are seen opposing each other on a Paurnami, wherein an enlightened mind is aware of the soul that it has darshan of. On an Amavasya day, only the soul exists and the mind has not yet begun the process of enlightenment. Therefore, the moon and the sun are conjunct. Following the no moon day, the moon is said to gain a phase of Nityakala Devi every day until Paurnami, when all 15 Nityas are found with the moon, making it shine bright. These 15 Nityas, in the form of their respective Tidis, have two aspects each, the Prakasha, which rules the day, and Vimarsha, that rules the night portion of the world. At night, the Nityas collect the divine nectar and release it during the day, which agrees with the belief that the human body repairs and rejuvenates itself at night and comes alive the most during the day. On the first Tithi after the Paurnami, one Nitya leaves the moon and goes to the sun, which causes the moon to reduce slightly in size. As each day progresses, the other Nityas leave too, till none remain with him, plunging the moon into darkness or Amavasya. Such folklore and mythology is thus used to commit the science and technicalities of astronomy to memory and pass it down through generations by word of mantra or the constant repetition of knowledge. Religion and sciences are so intertwined in India. Shakta, a philosophical branch of Hinduism that personifies the goddess as supreme, explains time as the following. Cyclic process of creation, sustenance, and destruction all depend on the concept of time. It is the goddess who turns the wheels of time. Symbolically, the iconography of the goddess shows her carrying the moon as an ornament on her forehead. The moon is often associated with nourishment and is said to influence vegetation. Devi Shakambhari is celebrated as the personification of that auspicious bounty that Mother Earth bestows upon mankind. Every full moon of this year is a significant day for Shaktas to carry out various religious rituals that are in a way thanksgiving ceremonies. The Shakambhari Purnima, which falls during the month of Pausha, celebrates all vegetables that Mother Earth bestows upon us. The goddess is decorated with the same fruits and vegetables and greens that nourish our body as our way of thanking her. Everyone in the community gather to celebrate the bounty of that year's harvest and pray to be blessed with food all year through. Supreme Goddess is celebrated in the Hindu tradition during the 9-day festival of Navaratri. The Magha Navaratri, which occurs during the waxing phase of the moon in the month of Magha. The Paurnami in the month of Magha is significantly important to the Sri Vidya cult as it marks the Lalita Jayanti, or the birthday of Sri Lalita, Tripura Sundari. She is personified by the 15-letter sacred mantra, the Lalita Panchadasi, which traces its roots to the Atharvana Veda. The fourth Nama of the Lalita Sahasranama, Chitakni Kunda Sambhuta, describes Devi as the one who is born from the altar of fire of consciousness. On the day of Magha Purnima, Devi Lalita is said to be born from the altar of our consciousness to bless those who have overcome their base qualities with enlightenment and salvation. One of the major rituals on this day for Hindu devotees is to take a dip in the holy rivers. Astronomically, the Tamil festival of Masi Maham festival is celebrated when a full moon occurs while passing the Magha Nakshatra, which falls in the sign of Leo, while the sun is residing in the constellation of Aquarius, which is exactly opposite to it. Once in 12 years, when the planet Jupiter too joins the full moon in Leo, the Maha Maham is observed in Kumbakonam, Tamil Nadu. On this Paurnimi, taking a dip in the waters of any river is said to purify one, as water is considered to be a great nourisher and spiritual elevator in our Vedic tradition. Let us now take a look at Vaishnavism. The Bhagavata Purana is a Hindu scripture that speaks about the entire Vaishnava pantheon. It also eulogizes the entire life history of Lord Krishna and also describes him as having danced the Maharas on Sharat Purnima. Further, in Krishna's Bala Charitra episodes, we find mention of a circular dance that is referred to as Hallisaka. The Harivamsha Purana refers to the Ras as Hallisaka, mentioning styles like Rasaka, Dandarasaka and Goparasaka. The Natya Shastra classifies such group dances under the Pindi Bandhas. According to Sahitya Darpana, it is a circular dance performed by women under the direction of a man. Krishna's Ras Leela is the subject of several paintings, particularly in the Madhubani and Nirmal style, as well as the famed Patachitra. Krishna and Radha are Prema Shakti, who dance in the Sahasrara Chakra, which represents the goal of yoga, self-realization, and God realization, where the individual soul unites with the cosmic consciousness. When Krishna, as Madana Manohara or the stealer of hearts, plays his flute, the gopis often lose themselves the minute they listen to the music. The flute here symbolizes the divine calling. The river Yamuna is likened to the Sushumna Nadi with Ida and Pingala on its either side, whereas Vrindavan is likened to the mind that is ready for enlightenment on a Paurnami day. All our sensory desires are represented by the gopis, who each imagine that Krishna is dancing with them during the Maharas. Yet, in truth, while the senses are lost and the mind is subdued, the divine inseparable dance in the center of the Sahasrara in their Yugala Swarupa. This is why we see Radha in Krishna's eyes and Krishna in Radha's eyes. Thus, the awakening of the Kundalini, Shakti, within the Muladhara Chakra transpires from its coiled dormant form where Radha has no memory of Krishna, to the Swadhisthana, where she gets to know him through reasoning, to Manipura, where she falls in love with him. Proceeding to Anahata Chakra, she professes her love for him. Finally, at the Agnya Chakra, she perceives him as the Godhead, surrenders wholly, thus merging with him in the Sahasrara on the full moon night. This journey from Mooladhara, which is literally translated to root and basis of one's existence, to the Sahasrara, which is regarded as the highest spiritual center, can be likened to the time the moon takes to attain full illumination. As a tattva, Radha resides in each of us, showing us the path that every jiva is to take in their lifetime. This is in accordance with the Vaishnava Sampradaya. Philosophically, Krishna here is the Paramatma and Radha represents all the jivatmas. Shaivism, which is another branch of the Hindu tradition, holds Lord Shiva to be the supreme godhead. Kartikeya Paurnami, which is celebrated in the Tamil Masam of Kartika, is of great importance to all Shaivites across India. Kartikeya Deepam is celebrated with the Uma Maheshwara Vrata, a fast where donations are made to the poor to show the enlightenment comes when everyone is happy. It cannot be achieved by keeping things to themselves, claiming propriety. Lord Shiva is typically depicted as an ascetic to symbolize that, in honesty, we bring nothing when we are born and cannot take anything with us when we depart from the world. It is better to live life and enjoy all its creation outwardly while being an ascetic on the inside. When one owns nothing, he becomes a realized soul who is able to give love abundantly. The legend goes that on Kartikeya Purnima, Lord Shiva gave darshan to Lord Brahma and Lord Vishnu as an endless column of light. When Brahma, the creator, and Vishnu, the preserver, had an argument on whom amongst them was greater, to settle their dispute, they reached an agreement that whoever finds one of the beginning or the end will be considered the greatest among them. But both of them failed in their mission. Here, the Kartikeya Paurnami is celebrated at Tirunnamalai in Tamil Nadu with the physical lighting of a lamp, the Annamalai Deepam, which is the size of a bonfire. One day before the Deepam is lit on top of the hill, the Bharani Deepam is lit at the Arunachala temple and every Shailite home. In this ritual, 356 wicks representing the days of the year are put together and lit in a lamp of ghee. The lighting of one's consciousness every day of the year is symbolized by the lighting of this one lamp during this ritual in the nakshatra of Bharani, thereby preparing one for enlightenment on the Kartikeya nakshatra the following day. Once the Annamalai Deepam is lit atop the Arunachala mountain, millions of earthen lamps are lit across India, illuminating the entire house. Symbolically, the house represents our body and the lamp represents our eagerness to seek knowledge. This lighting of lamp is a reminder to all of us to seek knowledge that is indestructible and has no beginning nor end. Knowledge does and will exist in many forms. Therefore, it was spoken about and glorified by seers in the form of mantra and in our Upanishads. His Holiness Swami Shantanand Saraswati explains the process of mental illumination from Amavasya to Paurnami in these ways. When I was a bud, I did not pray because I did not know. When I have become the fully blossomed flower, again I do not pray because I know. A time comes when a prayer is not in the morning or evening or once in a week or even on a festival day, but is a perpetual, continuous, unbroken awareness of the significance of God working in and through me and in and through everything. Thus, the full moon is associated with nourishment in the physical plane, tranquility in the emotional plane, and enlightenment in the spiritual plane. The upliftment of man from a materialistic person to a mentally evolved person who is filled with compassion and love for humanity and has a willingness to share and a thirst for knowledge, both material or spiritual, is symbolized by the full moon. This fullness is described in the invocatory verse of the Isha Vasya Upanishad as follows: Purnamadam Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudakshati Purnasya Purnamataya Purnameva Vasishyati. What is visible is the infinite. What is invisible is also the infinite. Out of the infinite being, the finite has come. Yet, being infinite, only infinite remains. Peace in my heart, peace in each other, peace in the cosmos. Hari Om.
Shivapriya?
Yes, I'd like to thank Dr. Padma Subramaniam, who has opened my eyes to a significant fact, which is that there is so much of knowledge, different vidyas in India, and to see a common ground in them. I think that's something I have learned only after I came under her. And I'd like to thank Dr. Rajshri Vasudevan and Dr. Jayashree Rajagopalan for having set up this forum for people like me to share. And I hope all of you who have listened to me today will give me good feedback and sort of show me a way forward to sort of make my knowledge more whole. I thank everyone for patiently listening to me, and I hope I have been worthy of your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Shivapriya. I now request Dr. Gauri Mahulikar to give her expert comments and observations.
Thank you. First of all, let me thank Nrityodaya, who has organized this 12th session in collaboration with the Art and Culture Center of Shasan Jain College, Chennai. It's a wonderful forum, and I think 2-3 of my students have already appeared on this forum, so I am very proud that such a forum is being provided for the young researchers. And congratulations, Shivapriya, for this very beautiful presentation, wonderful presentation on Purnami. Purnami, Purnamasi, see, I am a Sanskrit teacher, right? So without Sanskrit, without like etymology, without some stories, I can't proceed. So though I'm not an expert in the Agamic literature, I haven't much read about it, but still, right from the Vedic times till the Puranic times, you know, how Purnama, Purnami, Purnamasi, or Purnima, whatever way you call it, how it is very significant, I can throw some light on that. It is basically Purni Mimi Te, Purni and Ma. These are the two words you can split. Ma is to measure, and Purnim, that which measures the fullness, that is called Purnima. Okay? Purno maso bhavet yasmat tasmat Paurnamasi smrita. Because the mass, the month, attains the fullness, and therefore it is called Paurnima or Purnamasi. Purna Masa. So the Masa comes to an end, comes to the fullest, and therefore it is called Purnamasi. Now it is also right from the Vedic times, from the Sutra period, from the Yajurveda period, we have the Shrauta Yagas in the Shrauta Sutras, and there are Chaturmasya Yagas in which we have Darsha Purnamasa Yajna. Darsha is Amavasya and Purnamasa is Paurnima. So Amavasya and Paurnima, basically, Surya Chandra Ubhe Netre. This is Surya, this is Chandra. The right is Chandra, the left is Surya. Shiva Priya mentioned the Ida and Pingala, and Sushumna in between from our spinal cord. So this Surya Chandra Ubhe Netre. So these two are like the Kala Mapakas. They are the regulators of time. Sun regulates the day and the moon regulates the night. Basically, why we have that lunar calendars? Just think logically. I think it becomes very evident. The sun, the phases of the sun, not phases, but the very appearance of sun, you can't even look at the sun. Morning sun, only for a few minutes you can look at it. But from the position of the sun, you can't make out which day it is. But it is very easy to make out from the digits, from the phases of the moon. It must be half, it must be Saptami or Ashtami. I look at the sky, oh, Ashtami rahega aaj. And a little bit Ekadashi, just yesterday, before yesterday, it was Ekadashi. I was just thinking maybe Dashami or Ekadashi. You can readily recognize the days, which day it is, which tithi it is, looking at the moon. And therefore, lunar calendars must have been the first in the history of mankind to note the time as such. The moon and the stars and their positions, so they are the decisive factors. Now, when we talk about Purnamasi, is it one Purnima only? It is said that Purnamasi Dvividha Smrita. It is Raka and Anumati. So one digit less to the Purnima on the Chaudas, Chaturdashi, it is called Anumati. And when it attains the fullness, it is called Raka. Okay. And now the etymology of Chandra is given by Kalidasa in Raghuvamsha. Alhadanat yatha Chandraha. Chandayati, Alhadayati, one who pleases you. He is called Chandra. And here is Raka, Ranjanat Chaiva Chandrasya Raketya Vidhiyate. She pleases the moon and therefore she is called Raka, Ranjana. So it is not only the Chandra who is pleasing, the full moon, it is all the more pleasing. So Rakaranta Manumanyante Devata Pitrubhi Saha. On Purnima, it is stated that all the deities, the Devata, they enjoy in the company of the Pitrus, the ancestors. Anumanyante Devataha Pitrubhi Saha. This is in some granthas, I should not come here unprepared, right? So I went to the library and picked up few books on Jyotisha and Kalamapana. So in Koshti Pradipa, I got this. Now in the Shatapatha Brahmana, in the Taittiriya Samhita, way back, Chandra is called Panchadasha. Chandraha Panchadashaha iti uchyate. Why it is called Panchadasha? Because he has got 15 kalas, okay? And this Chandra is also called Oshadhipatihi, or he is called Udupa. Udu is a nakshatra, and therefore he is Nakshatranam Adhipati. Nakshatranam Aham Shashi, says Bhagavad Gita as well, right? In the 10th chapter, Vibhuti Yoga. So he is Udupa, he is Oshadhipati. He is very calm, quiet, and cool. just opposite to the sun. Sun is Chandanshu, Sahasranshu, thousands of bright heated rays is equipped of, whereas moon is Shitanshu or Himanshu. Hima, snowy or icy, his rays are icy cool, ice cool. To look at Chandra is such a pleasure, you know. So they are just diametrically opposite each other. So I was coming to this Raka and Anumati. Anumati is a digitless and Raka is full moon. Like for Anumati, I remember Chaudavi ka Chandavo, Ya Afatab. Afatab is a full moon. And Chaudavi ka Chand, see the concepts are there everywhere, right? The same concepts. Call it Anumati or Chaudavi ka Chand. Call it Purnami, Purnamasi or Afatab. The concepts are similarly found everywhere, okay? And similarly, as Purnima is two types, Amavasya is also two types, Sinivali and Kuhu. And this Darsha Purnamasa Yajna in the Chaturmasya, we had to offer, I mean, the Vedic seers prescribed that you had to offer the Havi to the devatas, to the deities, okay? So this was performed both on Darsha as well as on Purnima, Darsha Purnamasa. And Darsha, why it is called Darsha, you know that? Because we can't see the moon, but the sun and moon are in the company of each other. Darsha, they see each other, they meet each other, and therefore it is called Darsha. And it is called Ama Pasya. Ama is near, and therefore they both stay near to each other. And in the company of sun, how can we see the moon? And therefore we don't see the moon. So that is Ama Pasya. Now, going back to the Vedic literature, see, I have some study in the Vedic as well as Puranic. So I have to relate both, right, every time. So going back to the Vedic studies, I can say that this Indra myth, Indra and Vritra fight, that is very, very widely, elaborately described in almost 250 suktas of Indra, you know, in the Rig Veda. Out of 1058, 250 plus suktas are for Indra alone. And in every Indra sukta, Vritragna, Vritraha, some such epithet would occur. It is stated that when Indra killed Vritra, and when he came back, why he killed Vritra? Because Vritra had stolen all the sampatti, all the richness of the gods. The gods were deprived of their Lakshmi, as Bali did in the Puranic days. Bali deprived Indra of his Rajya Lakshmi, and therefore Indra went and hid himself in the lotus, the story says in the Puranas. Similarly, here now, Vritra had deprived the gods. Indra killed Vritra and came back on the day of Amavasya. On the day of Amavasya, and that day, another definition or the Nirukti, etymology of Amavasu is Vasu, all the richness came near the gods. Ama is near, and therefore it is called Amavasya. Another novel interpretation of Amavasya. When we are talking of Purnimi, I think we must talk of Amavasya, then only the description or the description and the all the elaboration becomes clearer. Otherwise, there is something which is lacking. Okay. And then I'll come to the significance. The main topic of Shivapriya is the significance. I also like that. Apart from this Vedic and the Puranic studies, I can take you to a 16th or I think it's a 14th, 15th century Ramayana, Telugu Ramayana, written by a potter's daughter called Mulla. And the Ramayana is known as Mulla Ramayana. Okay, Mulla Ramayana. In the Ayodhya Kanda, she doesn't write. Mulla is not very learned. You know, she's a potter's daughter way back in 15th, 16th century, 600 years ago. What was the education facility given to women, right? In the medieval period, it was hardly anything. But the Telugu which you read, I could make sense of it. It was written in Devanagari, of course, because it has so much influence of Sanskrit on it. She has given one beautiful utpreksha, beautiful poetic fancy about moon. And this comes from her being a woman, okay? Now it's a everyday like phenomenon for every household lady, be it a girl or newly married or you know, auntie or aji, you know, grandmother, boiling of milk. You boil milk, okay? When it is boiled to the brim, there comes the cream on the top of it. Okay, if the fan is full on, that lump of cream will be blown by the fan. Do you agree? Milk gets heated, it is boiled, and then the cream could be blown if there is a gust of wind. That much you can agree to. Now she has fancied, you know, poetic imagination. Look at her wonderful imagination. I was really like, you know, awestruck to read it. It's such a very awesome type of utpreksha. She says, the milky ocean, the Kshira Sagara, has come to a boiling point. By what? By the Sahasranshu sun. The sun is, you know, heating that milky ocean with thousands of his hot rays. And therefore that milk, you know, that has come to a boil. And then there came a gust of wind and blew that cream, the lump of cream, in the eastern direction, and that went and settled in the heaven, and that is the moon, the Purnami moon. The little yellowish white cream. Just imagine the thick milk getting boiled, the cream getting, you know, cream is getting collected there, and there comes the gust of wind, and that lump, you know, that ball of cream is thrown in the heaven, and that got settled as the yellowish white full moon. What an imagination. So now with that, I'll come to the significance of this Dwadasha Paurnamis. She has already explained a few, like Kardigai she referred to, then she referred to the Shakambari Paurnami, right? So I would refer to all others, right from Chaitra Masa, which is our Hindu calendar. So Chaitri Purnima, if you take for example, Chaitra, the entire Chaitra month is like the Vasanta Ritu, and it is the vegetation is on, I mean, vegetation is full, and the nature is giving us in abundance. The flowers, the fragrance, everywhere you see the yellow color and the green color, which is the color of abundance, which is the color of prosperity, vegetation, creativity, whatnot. And just imagine all our New Year's, be it Gudi Padwa, be it Vishu, be it anything else, it all comes in this Madhu Madhava. It is Vasanta Ritu, Chaitra and Vaishakha, these 2 months. And Lakshmi is specifically worshipped on Chaitra Poonam. It is called Chaitri. That Chaitra Poonam is called Chaitri, and Lakshmi is especially worshipped on that Purnima. Then comes the Vaishakha Purnima. Of course, the Chaitra influence is still there, but Vaishakha we worship. Of course, it is Buddha Purnima. Nowadays, bank holiday in Maharashtra, I know, not in Kerala. And then Vishnu is worshipped on Vaishakha Purnima. Vishnu with Lakshmi, they are worshipped. Every Purnima is associated with some or the other deity and their worship, which, you know, give you, which confer upon you lot of riches and lot of their blessings and whatnot. Then we come to Jyeshtha Purnima, and Jyeshtha Purnima we all observe, the ladies especially, they know it is Vata Purnima. It is called Vata Purnima. It is called Savitri Vrata. Savitri is a great woman who fought with Yamaraj and brought back her husband's life, Satyavan's life, right? So that is an independent woman which we are worshipping on that day. A woman, if she decides something, nothing is impossible. She becomes unstoppable, like Savitri. So it is not just a puja which is there. There are so many other hidden truths behind these apparently the Puranic stories or the Itihasa stories. They are full of significance. So we have to take the right gist from that. And it is said that she had to undergo some sadhana. She did some tapas. She fasted for 3 nights, days and nights from Dwadashi. So Dwadashi, Trayodashi and Chaturdashi, and on Purnima, the 4th day, she had a debate with Yama. She vanquished him, she defeated him by her verbal debate, having the debate with Yama Dharmaraja. And she won back her husband's lives. So that is something which is very inspiring, which is very motivating, apart from the puja of the Vata Vriksha and having, some cord tying to the Vata tree or Ashwatha tree. There is much more significance behind that. Then we come to Ashada Purnima, which everybody knows as Guru Purnima or the Vyasa Purnima, and especially in the performing arts field in which you are, Nrityodaya people and Art and Culture Center of Shasan College, you have a great significance attached to Guru Purnima. We all have our Guru Parampara in our mind, but it is the performing arts which has kept it alive, I must say. Otherwise, in the university education, where is the Guru Purnima? It is a teacher's day. It is just a teacher's day, but not a guru. Guru is one, what Shiva Priya rightly said, Gakaram Andakaram Rauti, Nashayati iti Guru, one who dispels the darkness of ignorance is Guru. So that type of Guru we worship on this Ashada Purnima. Then comes Shravana Purnima, which is the Upakarma. And Shravanyam Praushthapadyam va Yajeta Yathavidhi and Sardha Panchadasha Panchamasan Shiksheta. Like in Manusmriti, there is some such verse. I haven't made any notes, okay, by the way. Whatever comes to my mind, I'm speaking. So Shravani or Praushtapadi, that is Bhadrapada Purnima, Manu also says that one has to undergo the Upakarma, the Shravani, changing the thread ceremony. That is what we do now, right? I mean, the men in our household, they change their the thread, the sacred thread, and wear a new one, showing it to the sun and all that, okay? So that is the Upakarma, and that is the Vedarambha. You start studying Vedas, and for 4.5 months in the ancient Gurukula system, when it was prevalent, for 4.5 months, an 8-year or 10-year child, you can't expect him to recite the mantras and tell the meaning also. He would just recite it, he would just memorize it. So for 4.5 months, it is only Samhita Pathana. And how it is to be done, Ramanujacharya says, Guru Uchcharana Anucharana Matra Swadhyaya. So Guru will say something and then the Shishyas will imitate that Anuvada for 3 times, and that is the Swadhyaya. So that is how the Vedarambha is done. Of course, the Raksha Bandhana nowadays, it is Raksha Bandhan day for Shravana Purnima. So that is also celebrated. Again, a very beautiful relationship, a familial relationship is being built in that. Then comes the Bhadrapada Purnima, which is a Mahalaya Masa. The Paksha, at least, not the entire Masa, but the Paksha is the Mahalaya Paksha. But the Purnima, this is the only Purnimi. This is the only Purnamasi where Pindadana is to be done. No other Purnima, Pindadana is done. This is the only Purnima when Matamaha and Pitamaha Shraddha is done on Purnima. So this is the Mahalaya Shraddha which is done on Bhadrapada Purnamasi. Then Pindadana otherwise is prohibited on the Purnimas, but only on this Purnima it is allowed. And then we have Shravan, Bhadrapada, Ashwin Kartik. So Ashwin Purnima is like, the Kojagari Purnima. We call it Kojagari Purnima. Kojagarti. Who is awake? Who is awake? Lakshmi goes on wandering from house to house at night, and one who is keeping awake, and one who drinks that milk which he boils under the moon rays, all that stuff, the masala doodh That what we call it in Maharashtra, it is very famous. In Kojagiri, you have to have that masala doodh. And it is called Ashwini in Maharashtra. And a very specific a custom which I found after I married a Maharashtrian is on Ashwini, this Purnima, the mother always does an arati of the eldest son or daughter. So he is likened to the moon. Okay, so that is very, I mean, it's a, region wise the customs vary. So that is the Ashwani, Ashvayuji Purnima. And in the Grahya Sutras, it is known as the Sthali Paka, the Parvana or Agrayaneshti, because this is the time of harvest. The new corn and the new rice corns are ready, and therefore we put the rice corns also on our door in the Toranam along with the mango leaves and these flowers. We keep that also, So that is the harvest period, and therefore it is the Paka Yajna which is given, which is prescribed for Ashwini Purnima. The Kartikeya, of course, she also referred to. And Kartikeya is, Kartiki Purnima and Kartiki Amavasya, both are very important because Amavasya is the Deepavali, the Lakshmi Puja, whereas Kartiki Purnima is the Rasa Krida, which Shivapriya also referred to in Harivamsha Purana and Bhagavata, especially Bhagavata Purana, the 10th Skanda, 29 chapter to 33, called Rasa Panchadhyaya, beautiful description of Krishna and the gopis having Rasa Leela on Kalindi Tata on Kartika Poonam day. So such a beautiful description. Even in the Meghaduta, for example, Yaksha tells that cloud, you go and tell my wife going to Alaka city that you have to bear only 4 months now. 8 months have already passed, and soon on the Kartiki Dvadashi day, Vishnu will wake up from his 4 months of long sleep. And by that time, I will be coming there. And on that Kartiki Purnima day, night, we will enjoy whatever we have missed out throughout this year. So Kartik Purnima has a very special significance, especially for the loving couples. Okay, because the moon is crystal clear. It is Sharad Ritu. There are no clouds barring the beauty, maligning the beauty or obstructing the beauty of the full moon. So it is the Sharad Ritu, Swachham Akasham, and therefore the couples can enjoy that, And again, the Lakshmi Purnima, it is also called Kaumudi Mahotsava. Kartika Purnima is Tripurari Purnima also. It is also called Tripurari Purnima, and it is called Kaumudi Mahotsava. Kaumudi is Ku is Prithvi. Kau Prithivyam Modante Janaha iti Kaumudi. On this earth, all the jana, all the people, they just relish, they just enjoy, and therefore that is called as Kaumudi. So that is the Kaumudi Mahotsava. Ashwin Kartik Margashirsha. Margashirsha, the Datta Jayanti, Margashirsha Purnima is the Dattatreya, which is like again, you look at this Hindu Dharma concept. There is Brahma, there is Vishnu, there is Mahesha, but all 3 sects will have some conflicts between them. When we have Hari Harau in one form, it was to, what you can say, address the conflicts or the disputes between the Shaivites and the Vaishnavites. But there are the Brahma worshippers. So bring all 3 together and create Dattatreya. So this is what we have already boasting of, unity in diversity. So that comes in the Margashirsha Purnima, that is Dattatreya. Then we have the Pausha, and she rightly referred to it is Shakambari. Paushi is called Shakambari, and it is, sometimes it is in Pausha Purnima is called Shakambari, sometimes it is Magha Purnima, which is called Shakambari. But both are dedicated to the Devi worship. I must tell you, the place in Karnataka where I am born, in Dharwad district, near that place, Abdigeri, my hometown, there is a place called Banashankari. And in that Banashankari, that the deity there is Shakambari. And she is, as Shivapriya rightly said, she is worshipped by the vegetables and fruits and, all that thing. So Shakambari Purnima, be it a Paushi or be it a Maghi, but it is a Devi worship, no doubt on that. Okay, no doubt about that. And then comes the Falguna, the Holika. Falguna Purnima is Holika, right? It is Holika Dahana, and then driving away the evil and welcoming the noble, welcoming the sacred, welcoming the desirable, coveted richness, that sampatti, all that comes in the Falguna Purnima. So most of these Purnimas, I say, they are like associated with the Devi form. Devi itself is born, Devi itself is born from the luster of all the gods, together. All the gods have shared their weapons also, their luster also, and that is how the Devi form has emerged. And as she rightly said in Lalita Sahasranama, Chidagni Kunda Sambhuta, she referred to she referred to that, Chidagni Kunda Sambhuta. So this is the Lalita Sahasranama or the Mahatripura Sundari. These are the forms of Devi which are worshipped, especially on Purnamasi Day. I remember we had the Shakambari in Magha Purnima in our house, okay, in Karnataka, and my grandmother used to worship that Devi form, and she was a widow, and as was the custom then, she had tonsured her head. She used to eat only once, one meal a day. And on this Maghi Purnima, there was Akhanda Deepam. And if the Deepam is, if the oil or the ghee, there are two Deepams. One is of oil, one is of the ghee. So if the content is missing there, the resources are missing, she would fill it. And that filling has to be done either in a naked form or with a very sacred cloth, which is called dhabli. Dhabli, it's like a woolen cloth, and she will wrap around her body only that. This is, literally, I that time I did not understand the significance of that. When I read more about the Devi myths, the mythology, then how nudity is also associated with Devi. It is not nudity per se, it is the creativity. It is the creativity, the Srijana Shakti. That comes when the mother earth is also nude, then only she can give abundant harvest and richness and the crops and all that. So that nudity is linked with the creativity. So that concept I learned later on. So this is, I think, invariably connected somewhere with the Matrika cult as well. The Purnamasi is invariably connected, and therefore she is called Rakini, Dakini, Lakini, Adini. So many names are there in Lalita Sahasranama. You just go through. There are so many wonderful names for her. So some of these names have come from aboriginals. Some have like acculturation into the mainstream Vedic dharma, So many things have amalgamated together. They have combined together to form this significance of the Paurnami and the association of the Paurnami to the Devi Swarupa. So I think I should not be taking much more time than the speaker herself. So I thank the organizers for inviting me to this forum, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Hari.
Ma'am, that was like a pravaha. It was like a cataract kind of. We are all drenched with the cataract of information, knowledge that you have given us. So it is, I think, taking us a few minutes to collect our thoughts because some questions have come in. So I'll ask the first few to Shivapriya, and there are some others which are very technical, which I think will be addressed to you. Shivapriya, there are two questions here. One is, what is the significance of viewing the Moonram Pirai? How has this significance been imbibed into the people through mythological retellings? Okay, the concept of Moonram Pirai. Okay, that is one. Shall I tell you the other one, or you want me to ask after you finish?
No, can I answer this first?
Yes, yes, please. Yes.
I think the significance of the Moonram Pirai is the fact that Shiva wears the Moonram Pirai on his head. And because of that, usually it is considered auspicious because he has worn it as his jewel. That particular crescent is what is worn by him. So that is why we think of it as auspicious.
Okay. There are two questions. One is about the positive aspect and one is the negative. The negative is that what are the myths? Why are there myths surrounding cutting of nails or hair during Paurnami? Some student has asked. And there is another question, that is, there is a belief that Paurnami is a good day for babies to be born. Does it hold any truth? Is there any source for this popular belief? So the negative and the positive aspect.
Okay, the nails and the hair and all of that. What I have understood from my grandmother, I don't think I have a like a technical shastra to quote from, but what she would always tell us is Paurnami is a time when everything is divine, in that sense that you know, just like how during Durga Puja, you realize that Ramakrishna had this way of going and taking, asking the person who makes the Devi statue to go and take mud even from the house outside the prostitute's house. Everything is divine during Paurnami. So at that time, the nail and the hair and everything that you are yourself Devi at that time. So any bit of you is not necessary to be cut and thrown because it is she who is actually making it grow. That is what Pati used to tell me. That's one thing. As far as babies are concerned, I think it is more the fact that in a chart. So all navagrahas have the seventh aspect. So basically that means that all through your life, the moon, which is the mind, will have the direct side of the soul, which is very well directed, if you could say that. And that is something that we wanted in our mind all through its life. That's the significance.
Okay. Ma'am, there are one or two questions. That is, you would like to, ma'am, mute. Can't hear me. Ma'am, you're muted, ma'am.
Yeah. So
would you like to add to that, ma'am?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Why one should not cut the hair and nails on Purnima and Amavasya, you know. So I feel, I mean, I haven't read it anywhere. This is a logic. Hair and nails both are ever growing things. The more you cut, the more they grow. But cutting is the death. Cutting is you are making them die. You are throwing them away. And therefore you should not do that because these are the Shubha Tithis. In the Tithi Yajna or the Tithi Mahatmya, etc., this Paurnami and Amavasya are regarded as the good Tithis, and therefore there should not be any reference to the death or throwing out something from your body because that is indicative of life. Because you cut your hair, they grow. You cut your nails, they also grow, right? And therefore it should not. That is my logical explanation for that.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, in the Ganesha story, is that given only to explain the waxing and waning of the moon, or does it have a deeper meaning? Since the moon has existed from time immemorial and always has these phases, how does one explain the story that appears at a later time period?
See,
Aishwarya has asked this question.
Me, I'm not a adhikari to answer it in a fullest manner, but whatever I have read, see, the Ganesha story is late. I agree with that. And moon is right from times immemorial, okay? But there are some black spots on the moon. Human beings has observed it. And everybody has given some explanation to that in their own manner. One of the stories is of Ganesha. Okay, when Ganesha was riding his little mouse and going on the road, he fell down and moon laughed at him, and therefore Ganesha threw the mud and threw on the moon, and that's how that black spots are there. You know? So that is just, I mean, make it more interesting. See, this is a Bala Ganesha. It's an impulsive action for any child. Somebody laughs at you, then you just reciprocate, you know, in your own way. So that's what Ganesha did. And for the phases of the moon, I think Shiva Priya also mentioned about the story of Daksha's daughters, and then he loved Rohini all the more than the other 26 daughters. These 27 daughters are the 27 nakshatras. Okay, and therefore he is the Udupa, he is their Pati, he is their Palaka. Okay, so now because he loved Rohini more, the other daughters went and complained to Daksha, and therefore Daksha said, you suffer from consumption today onwards. Now who will curse his own son-in-law? But Daksha did it. Now, when he did it that way, the daughters are repenting now, oh, what my father has done, what our father has done. We didn't want our husband to suffer in this manner. And therefore they went back to him again, and then they asked, and then Daksha said, okay, I have given you the curse now, that can't be nullified, but 15 days you go on waning, and 15 days you go on waxing. Right? So this is related. This is what we call fabrication of stories. And this is called etiological myth. That is justificatory myth. There is a fact which exists, and you have to justify that. So the justificatory tales or the etiological myths is a later development, and therefore we have it in the Puranas. Okay? In the Vedas, we won't have such stories.
There are one or two questions, ma'am, connected with astrology. One of it
I won't be the right person. Throw it at me, and then maybe I will throw it back like a boomerang.
I just had one question to ask. In the South, they always say you should not see the Chaturthi moon. Does this have any special reference?
That is the Ganesha story. That day only he laughed.
Yes, that one.
That's the same. And therefore, especially Ganesha Chaturthi. I mean, all Chaturthis, good you observe, but at least on Bhadrapada Chaturthi, you observe that, don't look at moon. Because it is Ganesha's curse.
Here it's mentioned, ma'am, in astrology, stars are named after their closeness to the moon. In such a case, isn't it moon that is more important in fortune telling rather than stars and planets?
It should be, but I'm not the right person to answer that. I'm so sorry. I haven't learned Jyotisha in that way, right?
Okay. There is one more, ma'am. We say moon has Shodasha colors, that is 16 digits. Then how does the Paksham end with 15 days?
Sometimes we have the double tithis. Sometimes there is a tithi lopa, and sometimes we have the double tithis. So Shodasha color refers to that. And I may take you with Shodasha color to Shodasha color Brahma. This is a concept, Upanishadic concept. Shodasha color Brahma is a Upanishadic concept, and therefore it is now later on transferred to the digits of the moon, the phases of the moon.
There is one question on why is Ashtami considered as malefic?
Oh, again, I don't know.
There is another question. Ma'am, you mentioned about Raksha Bandhan being celebrated on Paurnami. What is the connection then between the brother and the moon?
Moon is the brother of Lakshmi, no? Moon is the brother, they are sahodaras. Lakshmi, Kaustuva, Parijata, Sudha, Dhanvantarish, Chandramaha. Right? These are the 14 Chaturdasha Ratnani. Kshiramudrat Utthitani, and therefore they are Sahodaras. And therefore, to celebrate that relation of a brother and sister, maybe Raksha Bandhan is done on Shravana Purnima. Basically, Shravana Purnima is, as I said, this is a Vedarambha Purnima. You start your studies. Suppose the brother is going out in his Gurukula, then the sister will be naturally, worried for her young brother or something like that. So she will tie some dhaga, prem ka dhaga, sneha rajju. This is a sneha rajju, right?
I think, ma'am, those were the questions which were posted on Facebook Live. So the intern was sending it across to me because since we are all in the meet. So I think that kind of brings us to the end of this session. So if either of you would like to add something, you can. Otherwise, we can conclude it. If Shivapriya wants to add something, or ma'am, you want to add something, Gauri ma'am.
Not really, but then I would refer to the from Mooladhara to Sahasrara that I didn't refer to in her lecture. She did mention from Mooladhara and then Swadhisthana, Manipura, etc., Anahata and Sahasrara Chakra. So one, who does that type of Kundalini Jagarana. This is Kundalini Jagarana, awakening the Kundalini. And after that, when Sahasrara Chakra opens, it is Ajna Chakra, which is only Dvidala. This is basically the Dvidala, okay, Chandra Surya. And then Sahasrara Chakra here, it is like, you can visualize that as an Ashwatha tree. Right from the Mooladhara till the Sahasrara and multiple branches and sub-branches and coming out in this form, that is the Ashwatha, which is eternal life tree. Like in the right in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. That is one aspect. And secondly, when the Sahasrara Chakra opens, then there is Sudhanshu Varshava, Sudha Varshava. So that Sudha Varshava, because another name for moon is Sudhanshu. Okay. Soma is one name. Again, I can take you back to the Rigveda. Soma in the Rigveda is that, elixir or that herbal juice which gives you whatever you want. That will give you eternal, perpetual youth. Then lot of brainy matter, lot of gray matter in your brain. Okay, so many things it will give you. Soma, and Soma is basically a healing drink also. Soma is a vanaspati. It's basically a herbal juice, and it heals also. It prevents also. So in the health management also it is necessary. Then in the ritual aspect also, Soma Prashana and Soma Savana. There are 3 times Soma being offered in the Vedic sacrifices to Indra, Vayu and other deities, the Pratas Savana, the Marjandina Savana and the Sayam Savana. So the ritual aspect also it is there. And then Soma is this like a nectar or an elixir of life. It relates to the Adhyatmika life or the yogic power. So you arouse in between in your body that yogic power, and then you can experience that Soma, that relish you can have. That was later on transferred to the Kundalini, which was done in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, but no commentator, Sanskrit commentator, has commented on the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita in the light of Hatha Yoga. It is Jnaneshwara. For the first time I heard and I read Jnaneshwari, and I was amazed to see Jnaneshwara, Sant Jnaneshwara himself was a Hatha Yogi. He had Nivritti Nath as his guide, and who comes from the Natha Parampara, right from Gorakshanatha. So that is the rich lineage which he really claims, and therefore when he describes the 6th chapter, he has described it so beautifully, and he says, Jayachiye Marge Maheshu Azuni Kapadi. Maheshu is Shiva. This marga, Kundalini marga or Kundalini Jagarana marga, is such a narrow way. Okay, not many people can go on that path. It's such a narrow way that even Mahesh is a traveler on that path. What about you and me? And he describes how this Kundalini gets aroused. She is like a Sarpini, Adho Mukhe Nideli. She is sleeping, her head downwards. Okay, head down, she is sleeping. And what the Hatha Yogi does, he controls his prana and he obstructs his apana. So the prana from above, apana from below, they clash. They have a fight. They have a conflict. And in that conflict, Hatha Yogi loses all the mausa, all the meda. Look at the Hatha Yogis, how thin they are. Skeleton, only bony skeleton they have. Because if they practice prana, apana, usamau, krutva, it is very difficult. And then this Sarpini, as if there is a metaphor, this Sarpini, this female serpent, she as if devours all the flesh, all the blood, and leaves the person only with a bony skeleton. But then, why Hatha Yogis do it? Because once she gets aroused and her face turned upwards, then she touches this and there is the Sudha Rasa Varshava. And for that Varshava, Hatha Yogis practice such a difficult sadhana. So I think this answers that how this Sudhanshu, this is Sudha is nectar, right? Sudha is nectar. His Anshu are the rays. Anshu means the rays. Like sun is called Chandanshu. His rays are very wild and heated and very hot. And this is Sudhanshu or Himanshu, as cool as ice, okay, ice cool, or filled with life principle, filled with nectar and elixir of life. So this Sudhanshu, as if, showers that Sudha on you. So this is related to the Yoga Marga as well. And therefore, when she referred to, so this has to be more elaborately researched, Shivapriya, in this line. So from Mooladhara to Sahasrara, the travel is not that easy. It is not just Shat Chakra Bhedini, as in Lalita Sahasranama, we say Shat Chakra Bhedini, Rudra Grantha Vibhedini, Vishnu Grantha Vibhedini, all these, it is much more than that. And the Shiva himself, one who sits in the Paryanka Bandha, he himself is a traveler. He himself has not achieved what he wants to. Then Kimuta, what to talk about you and me?
And now that you mentioned this about this Hatha Yoga and all, I had a doubt. In Shaivism in Kashmir, with reference to the Shaiva aspect, Paurnami is held up very significantly. But the Kaula tradition prefers the Amavasya. Is there any reason for that? Anything that...
I don't know really, but I could, because Kaula school, it is basically involved in the Vamachara.
Vamachara. Yes.
Vamachara. And the other school will be Dakshinachara. You can call it Dakshinachara. So the Vamachara thing would prefer darkness, no? For any Vama thing, you prefer darkness. Of course, Vama has two meanings. Vama could be left. Vama could be that which is not good. Okay? And Vama also means like a beautiful lady is called Vama. One is coveted is Vama. So Vama could be that Acharya which a person wants to do. But he is, how people will eye at me, how they will feel, what they will think of me if I am doing this Vamacharya. So Vama has double meanings, but mostly the Tantrics, whatever Tantrics we have seen, they do all these Vamacharya on Amavasya day because they don't want anybody to see what they're doing. Moon is not there, right? In the night only they will do it. And this, in fact, this is referred to by Banabhatta, a great Sanskrit scholar who has written works like Harshacharitam and Kadambari. He has referred to in Harshacharita this particular thing. And when he traces the lineage of King Harsha to a king called Pushpabhuti, he says, practice this Vamachara with his preceptor called Bhairava. So Bhairavacharya was his preceptor. He took him to the cemetery, and in the skull they burnt the gugula. So all this stuff. Who would do it in the bright daylight or in the moonlight? Nobody would do it, right? So maybe that is the reason.
This was fascinating for me because I did my work on Abhinav Gupta. So there's a lot of constant reference to the Kaula tradition, the Trika and the
Yes.
Kaula tradition. So I wanted to just get that cleared. So if there is anything that Shivapriya wants to add, or can we conclude the session? Okay. So I think it's time then to propose the formal vote of thanks.
Formal.
Yes. So on behalf of Center of Excellence Art and Culture, Shashwan Jain College, and Nrityodaya Academy of Performing Arts, we place our great gratitude to our expert today, Dr. Gauri Mahulikar, who is even busier now in the after the lockdown than before. I think everybody is seeking her classes and her courses. I was a participant in one of them, and it was really amazing. So thank you so much, ma'am, for taking time off and giving such very not just diverse but a very wide range of the topic that was selected by Shivapriya from so many different texts and making it understandable to lay people, because I think students and all, they're putting the comments that they really enjoyed the session. So you were able to bring it down to the level of the students as well. So thank you so much for that. Thank you, Shivapriya, for coming up with this topic. And coincidentally, I do not know whether we should use the word, probably it was planned that way. The topic happened on a Paurnami day. So I think that is the grace of the moon himself.
Today is Paurnami?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, great.
So I think that is something.
I must go and look at the moon now.
So, and we would like to thank from Nrityodaya side the well-wishers like Mr. Ramesh and Mahindra Finance for supporting them. And from our side, we would like to thank our secretary, Shri Abhay Shri Shimal Jain, our associate secretary, Shri Ashok Kumar Mehta, and our principal, Dr. Padmavati, who has been listening into this session right from the beginning. So thank you to all of them. And of course, our thanks are always due to our Guru, Padma Bhushan Dr. Padma Subramaniam, for the way she has been guiding us, supporting us, encouraging us, and we hope to remain worthy of her grace as well. And finally, of course, thanks to little Hiranmai, who sang a beautiful rendition and who is sitting up so late in the night despite being in Singapore, because she found the talk so fascinating. Ms. Aishwarya for being the MC, and Ms. Srividya for the screen sharing. And of course, we'll fail in our duty if we do not thank the Almighty again and again and again for blessing us and giving us the opportunity to come in touch with the researchers and experts like you, ma'am. So thank you so much. And we hope that you will all join in again in our next session. And I think Dr. Jayashree can probably tell it is going to be, I think, by Mrs. Anuradha Vikrant.
Anuradha Vikrant will be presenting a paper on the study, the concept of Angika Abhinaya that has been explored by Dr. Padma Subramaniam. And we would have Dr. Gayatri as an expert. So I hope all those who are here will join and also bring in your other friends. I hope Gauri ma'am can find a little time to join us at that time. It was an amazing talk listening to you. You have traced every Paurnamasi and its importance. Thank you so much for being with us. And I think Shivapriya her paper was also very informative, and she has also found a lot more to add to her research. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much, everyone, and Shubharatri.
Shubharatri.
Thank you.